I was diagnosed with PTSD after being released from my 5-year sentence in men's prison. Let's talk about some of the lifelong psychological effects that I will have to deal with since being released from prison. Being in men's prison was extremely traumatic for me as a trans person. Being in prison as any kind of person in general is extremely traumatic. I know obviously it's not supposed to be a vacation, but a lot of the things that the staff will put you through really just fucks with your mental. And in my case, it did land me with a PTSD diagnosis. There are a lot of things that I still struggle with today. I, to this day, cannot stand to hear the sound of keys jingling or clinking together. In prison, guards would clank their keys extremely loud, and they have these big keys that go to what they call crash gates, which lock everybody in. They would jangle these keys, or if they were mad about something or they just wanted to show off, they would take the keys and smash them against the edge of metal bunks or against doors. And I just have a shiver that goes up my spine every time I hear the clanking of keys. It really sends me to a place that I don't like to be in. Something else that's extremely triggering for me, if I am out in public, let's say on the beach or at a theme park, and somebody is running and they run past me, I absolutely can't deal with that. In prison, you are constantly worrying about who's behind you, what they're doing, what they're planning. And typically, if somebody's running up to you in prison, it's because they're about to take off on you. So out on the streets today, if somebody runs past me or they run up to me, I will definitely kind of withdraw, and I feel this urgency. My fight or flight instincts kick in because I'm just not used to that. In prison, running only means something bad, and that is just stuck in my head after spending 5 years in prison. I also really struggle with loud noises, so any kind of fireworks or booms, gunshots, things falling, it just trips me out. I absolutely can't deal with loud noises. I was never a skittish person before I went to prison. I ran the streets and did all kinds of crazy things and never thought twice about it. But all of the psychological warfare that was placed against me and my fellow inmates by the correction officers has really left me with an inability to deal with the most basic of noises that happen in everyday life. I've always been quite the social butterfly, and previously to being incarcerated, I was never scared or uncomfortable in large groups at things like concerts or fairs. But now, when I'm in large groups, I find myself extremely uncomfortable. I become very claustrophobic. It's just a very uncomfortable situation for me. And then, of course, there's small, simple things as well. If I'm out with a group of people and we're going into a restaurant or a store to go shopping, I find it nearly impossible to be the first person to walk through the door. In prison, you never know what's lurking at the edge of the door where you can't see. And to this day, I really struggle with walking through the threshold or a doorway as the first person. It just sends me. I also find it extremely hard to deal with small children. Previously, I had always pictured myself as a mother. I always wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a nurturer. And I still do have very strong maternal instincts, but I also have extremely low patience. The sound of children screaming or running or just having fun is extremely disruptive to me. And I know, of course, kids will be kids and we want them to have fun. but it's very triggering to my PTSD. And I think that that just comes from the amount of constant commotion that would go on in prison. When you're in prison, it is never truly quiet. You're surrounded by thousands of people. Whether you're in a cell or an open dorm, there is constant noise, chaos, action, fights, and that commotion really is very similar to that of what a small child creates. I know that that sounds terrible, but it's true. Something else that I have a really hard time with, if somebody is walking and the rubber sole of their shoe makes that like scuff, screechy sound, I freeze. Anytime you heard that kind of screeching scuff sound in prison, it was because somebody was throwing hands. Typically, if people were fighting, that meant that they were going to end up getting broken up by the police, which would lead to them being sprayed with mace. And if you were in the area at that time, you were also getting sprayed regardless of if you were fighting or not. Oftentimes, if there was a big fight going on in your unit, they would tell everybody to get on their bunks, and they would just walk through and spray everybody while they were on their bunks. It was extremely terrible to deal with. I was always very good at dealing with multiple things at once and kind of taking things heads on. But since my release, I definitely find myself becoming overstimulated very easily. I've learned since being released from prison that I just need to slow down and try to take things one thing at a time. This will be something that I struggle with my entire life, and I know that there are numerous people who've been incarcerated that have been diagnosed with PTSD, and I can truly say that that just comes from the chaos, and unfortunately it comes from the mistreatment that you will endure as an inmate from correction officers. A lot of correction officers make it their number one duty to remind you that you committed a crime and that they are in charge. I like to think that they have little dick syndrome, but I don't know. What do you think? I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys about some of the lifelong effects that people who are incarcerated could potentially be dealing with. My experience may not be the same as everyone else's experience, but I do know that prison is a very harsh environment. Like I said, it's not meant to be vacation, but I also don't think that people should be leaving with PTSD or a fear of walking through a door ahead of a group. I don't know. Just thought I would share with you guys.